No, I'm not a writer.
Okay.
All right, Spectre, welcome back to the third episode now, I think it is, of the SCRS podcast. You know, I've got my one finger of scotch to get me through it, especially after the robot week, and we'll get on that rant in a few minutes. But just want to remind everyone out there, make sure you follow us on Twitter. We try to get the crew from Warships today on this week, but if you've been to their site recently, you'll see that they've been doing a lot of work. So we just haven't been able to sync that up. But next week, we're still on with the Wargaming crew and some super testers, so that's going to be awesome. I'm still very excited about that. Also, the Super League, or I always want to call it the Super League, but it's the Supremacy League, right?
Supremacy League.
I know. Yep. I don't know what it is. Maybe that's just the way I feel about it. I don't know. But we just wrapped up, our third round, I think it was this weekend?
I believe so, yeah.
But anyway, how you been this week?
I've been good. I've been a little bit busy outside of the game, but other than that, been pretty uneventful. They obviously moved on to the Fast Track to Des Moines thing that they have going on, promotion, but I already have a Des Moines, so it's largely a non-factor for me.
Yeah, that would be a little nice if there was a little throwback from that for people who already did it. And I'd be interested maybe next week when we get a chance to talk to them, we'll ask them about what the incentive is for those fast tracks. I haven't seen much on the forums about any of that. Maybe it was in conjunction with the reduced repair for the tier 10s or 8 through 10s that's been going on. It'd be interesting to see how that all ties together.
Maybe, yeah.
Anyway,
but that's something we'll have to wait for next week.
Yeah, next week. But this week, I want to talk about the stupid ass Iowa robots. For the love of what? I don't understand the incentive. I don't understand why there is the need for that. I know in every game there's always some form of botting, but some of the responses out there have been about how there's not a mechanical way to track it, and they're not unsure about how to do that. But I'm sure they're going to get to the bottom of it. Just in the interim, I'm torn, right? I'm torn between whether or not I let the bot take some damage that I'm not taking, or if I sink it myself at the beginning of the match.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, bots on the enemy team are to be farmed for damage as soon as possible. And as for your own team, well, they're bots. You can't really control what they do. But if you can get yourself in a position where they're taking damage for you, then by all means, I say, go for it.
Yeah, but that goes against everything that I want to do in the game. And this one has more impact than it does in, say, what was it in World of Warcraft? A whole bunch of mining bot farmers and stuff like that. They just go around and collect resources, and some other games they do the same. But this one of 12, and then sometimes you get an AFK player too. That's a big deal, especially when Matchmaker's making it a tier 9 battleship.
Well, it's not so much Matchmaker makes some tier 9 battleships, right? It's just the bot. Whoever's running the bot wants them to play tier 9 battleships. That is, unfortunate. So
I was a little curious this week, and after seeing that 3 or 4 matches in a row, and that it's always some weird Japanese name. Not the Japanese names are weird. It's just that it's some of them were was it Naruto names or something like that? They're very identifiable.
They're basically 2-part Japanese names with first name and last name, capitalized, no spaces in between, and once you sort of get the convention down, they're very readily identified.
Yeah, it's very interesting why that was chosen, but so I did some digging on the internet just to see if there was a market out there for this kind of thing, because I was struggling with what is the end game for running those kind of bots, right? I mean, there isn't
to make
way,
money.
Yeah, well, I mean, there isn't a way in the game right now to go around and you can't trade the money in for doubloons. I mean, I guess there's some account selling going on out there. I did a quick kind of scan of some of those crazy websites to see if there was a market for it. I mean, it ranged anywhere from $12 for an account to $150 or 200 euros for accounts. I mean, everything. I think I saw one account for under $25. It was had a whole bunch of tier 8 premium ships with it, and I just wonder how much they kind of check out those places or those accounts, and if they monitor it, and if they catch you, I'm sure they would ban you, right? But I was just really struggling with what the incentive was. Was there really a market out there for this kind of stuff?
I mean, the fact that it's occurring's got to tell us, that there's at least some, market for it, right? And if you think about it, for people running these bots, it's probably not costing them a lot to run these bots. It's free to make an account, and assuming they, wrote their own program for the bot, that's also free, and all they have to do is just sort of keep the machines running. So for them, it's fairly low cost, and maybe they sell even like 1 or 2 accounts, whatever. It's probably by then already a win for them. So I would say the bar's pretty low for anyone who's trying to sell a bot account. I'm more puzzled as to it seems like almost everyone in the community has identified these guys, and they're probably reporting them. I'm just wondering why Wargaming is taking so long to take action.
Well, I mean, I was reading some stuff that, and so I decided to go look up a few of the names I'd seen. And if you look, it's like a 40% win rate. It's like 24/7 amount of games played in an unreasonable amount of time. I mean, it is really ridiculous. And while it would suck, and it shouldn't have to be that way, and they need to institute a way where they can monitor this kind of thing, and I don't know what the answer to that is. You would think that you could at least look at that, and I think I'd be willing to suffer through the, hey, we sent you a note in your email, you have to reply to us because your account's frozen to prove you're not a bot right now. Although I'm not sure that would solve it, right? I'd say, I'm not a bot, and then I'm going to continue botting, right? I mean, just spitballing, but there's got to be something, man, because this week was ridiculous. Occasionally you would see it previously, but man, it's out of control.
Well, yeah, it's definitely really crazy recently, and I fear it may have something to do with the fact that Wargaming is running that whole 20% off of repair cost reduction thing for the month of April. Just because these bots don't do particularly well, and if it weren't for the reduction in repair costs, it may not even they would eventually at some point have to inject doubloons into the account, right, in order to continue paying for the repairs of the ship. But I don't know. I hope that this is something that they can look at and really put an end to, because it sucks to be queue in a high tier game and discover that 2 of your 3 high tier battleships are bots, and they're just gonna reliably die right off the bat. It really ruins games.
Well, I mean, it could also be tied to one of the other things is there's always the power leveling, right? Every game's got somebody out there who's going to charge you a fee to level your stuff. And I was looking at one of them, it was tier 4 to 10 in 25 days for $220. And working through the math there, you either got to be really, really good or they're going to bot your game, right?
Yeah, it's probably going to be the latter. But, I mean, so far from what we've seen, these bots have been very consistently named. It doesn't seem like, these are actually, customers handing over their accounts to these guys. It seems more like, these botters have started up their own accounts and are just leveling their own thing for now.
Yeah, but you think they just started at tier 9 with Iowas, or do you think they botted the lower tiers? And I would guess that they probably botted some of the lower tier stuff, too.
I would think so too.
I'm convinced I saw a Hipper the other day botting. I am absolutely convinced, but
I mean, you definitely will run to lower tier bots. I remember running into I think it was a Königsberg or Nuremberg bot the other day playing my tier 6. But I'm not sure how they got up to the Iowa so far up to the Iowa without being detected. I mean, maybe. Truth be told, until someone pointed out, I hadn't even paid close attention to the fact to the behavior of these players, and I feel like for the most part, most of us don't really closely scrutinize the actions of our teammates until we're dead or something. And so it was only when someone pointed out to me that, hey, look out for these guys, they're bots, that I paid attention to how these guys are playing and realized that they're not really quite playing as a human would.
Well, that's true, but I mean these bots seem a little better than what the early ones were. I mean, they changed targets, they changed direction occasionally. I mean, short of trying to get them to talk to you, if you weren't really paying attention or someone hadn't pointed out, you're right. I don't think you would notice immediately.
Yeah, these bots. I mean, I don't know about, like, if they're intentionally programmed in such a way, but generally speaking, yeah, they do switch targets sometimes, and more importantly, they occasionally change the direction. But once they get locked in on that, they rarely ever make a change, and that's really how you find them out.
Well, the other thing I saw while I was doing this kind of cursory search to see kind of all the stuff that was out there and see if there really was something for it was some mod hacks for sale. I saw one that had like auto aim, and it had a couple other features in there, some smoke stuff, but it had some torpedo lines to be drawn to kind of show you the path of the torpedoes. And I was like, $20 a month, and I've never used those things, and I would be interested. If anyone out there is listening that's ever done it, shoot us an email anonymously, make a fake email. I'd love to talk to you about kind of what that looks like and why and how, and was it worth it, and the person selling it to you, did it end up wrong, did it not end up wrong? I would imagine there's some horror stories out there if you're gonna sign up to pay somebody through PayPal and all that kind of stuff, and I don't know. I can't imagine it ending well all the time.
I mean, this is one of those things where it's like a cat and mouse game with the developers, right? As for the subscription thing, I mean, it's been around for a while now. I remember back when Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 came out, when like the people who made the hacks turned to this subscription model, and I mean, it boggled my mind that they could even turn this whole thing to a legitimate business, but evidently they have. And it's definitely one of those things where you do got to be careful, because these guys are, the developers are always trying to like find out these cheaters, trying to stamp them out, and the cheaters themselves are always trying to stay a step ahead, to make sure they and their customers don't get caught. As for why, I mean, why does anyone cheat at any like sort of game? It's obviously boggling to us, but sadly it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, for 3 months of auto aim, you could just buy a Tirpitz. You know what I mean? And that's pretty close to cheating at tier 8.
Yeah, that's something like that. Although some people would argue that the people who buy like the cheats, sometimes the cheats actually do make them better players, and not just because they're doing the aiming for them, but like it just sort of shows them the things to do under certain circumstances, and it just allows them to pick up on these like tips that they will be able to retain even after they stop buying these cheats.
Oh, did you just advocate in a weird roundabout way that, hey, if you want to train yourself to be better, get some auto aim hack?
And I'm not saying that you should do this. Yes, that is indeed true. I actually had a friend who cheated back in Warcraft 3, way back when. And he has always maintained to me over and over again that getting access to like a map hack and stuff has actually made him a better player, just because it's allowed him to showed him what to look for and when to look for stuff when things are happening. And even after he got caught once and got banned, and he bought like a new CD key, he actually still retained a pretty high skill level at the game, even without using cheats anymore, just because he had learned all the ropes, so to speak. And just
Did you independently verify it? Did you see him do it?
Yeah, actually, I went over his house before, and he showed it off to me, and he was indeed cheating. And likewise, after he got caught once, and he had to rebuy the game, he also stopped using them, but he was still a really, really good player.
No, I just meant, did you see a improvement? Were you playing the game at the time with him, and you notice a huge difference from before and after?
Well, obviously his win rate probably took a bit of a dip, but yes, I did play with him before and after the cheats, and from what I could observe, yeah, he really did improve.
Well, anyway, I'm glad I got that off my chest this week. It was really annoying the crap out of me.
That being said, don't cheat.
Yeah, don't cheat. Don't cheat. Yeah, right.
I'm not in any way condoning cheating, so don't do it.
Yeah.
And if you do it, don't say that I told you to.
Yeah, definitely. Spectre Mage told you to do it. That's what we're sticking with.
No, we're not.
Only in the training room or something like that, right? Well, maybe, I mean, yeah. One of the posts on the forums from one of the managers was, basically your recourse is make sure you've got the replay files enabled, and then submit the replay file with a support ticket and send it in. And I think that's the temporary fix in the way they're going to do it. And maybe they'll take a look at it, and then we'll see what happens.
Upon it. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it'll be interesting to see. There are a lot of extensive notes out there right now for the patch coming in tomorrow and some of the other things, but I'm sure there are things that they're doing that aren't in the notes, and maybe this new file structure stuff will have something that'll help this out. There's the wishful thinking, right?
They're very wishful thinking there.
Well, let's hope, right? And if not, I'm sure there's something long term that's gonna go into trying to get that fixed.
Agreed. Yeah.
My real concern in the end, despite it being really obnoxious, and I struggle every time about whether or not to TK it, is that I kind of think that modding is an integral part of most games. It helps the community get involved, and it's kind of like a crowdsourced development effort, and you see a lot of those kind of mods and stuff make it in game. You even saw it with this one with some of the crosshair mods coming in 5.5, right? So whenever they get these, and sometimes the fixes aren't as elegant early on, they kind of break the ability for people to mod the game. And so I would hate to see something like Aslan's where there's some things in there that aren't cheats but are just user interface type stuff. I like to have the damage counter where I can see it, not at the end of the match kind of thing. I like to have a little extended zoom and those kind of things, but they're not cheating, at least as far as I can tell, right? And I'll probably get banned now, right?
Well, I mean, we don't quite know, how mod support is going to look like moving forward. Last I heard, Wargaming is implementing some sort of like mod key thing where, if you want to make a mod, you can request a key from Wargaming, and then as long as your key remains valid, your mod will continue to be loaded by the game.
Oh, is that in development? Where'd you see that? I'd love to read that. That sounds interesting.
Yeah, let me give me a moment to see if I can dig it up.
You don't have to look it up now. We'll find it when we're done, and maybe we'll post it on the website if you're interested in checking that out. But I know I am. That should be interesting. A way for them to do it, whether it's an SDK or something like that, would be awesome to keep these guys in business and involved and interested. Because we're going to talk server status in a little bit, but I think having that will help a little bit. And
I hope in general, just Wargaming just continues to support the mod community in what ways that they can. Obviously, some of the changes they make are for securing the game against unwanted mods, for instance, aimbots or whatever. But obviously, the least amount of drastic change that they can make that would negatively affect the legitimate modding community would obviously be best.
Another thing I'm not really in tune with is what, say, the European server stuff is doing. Do they use Aslan's? I don't even know. I'd love to talk to one of those European streamers like Earl Grey or something. Maybe we'll try and reach out to him and ask him a few questions about, what's the state over there? Do they use Aslan's? Do they use something different? I know they've seen the Iowa bots lately too. I think it showed up here first and kind of worked its way over, but I'm not sure what that community's up to.
I mean, this is something that we'll want to reach out and hopefully get in touch with a few people.
So before we start talking a few numbers, not really getting in depth, because I don't think there's a real good metric out there for kind of the health of the game. There's a few different sites that track it a little differently, but the game population in general, and I'll say just overarching, from what I was looking up and trying to find as, average population per day, some show peaks of all players they've ever tracked. Some show only ones that have been looked up. Some show pull API data from the servers and gives you kind of a much better feel for how many people are playing a day, night, month, year kind of thing. But that doesn't tell you how many total accounts there are. It just kind of gives you a server population for that day kind of thing. And despite some of the Warships is in decline or not in decline. I think it looks like there was a gentle peak somewhere around the January February timeframe, but for the most part, there's been a slight drop, but not anything that goes. I think people are just stopping playing Warships, and especially if you look at like the North America server, it kind of looks like every time something new comes out or there's a new event or something, people come back. There's a little spike, and then they're like, "Oh, that's interesting," and then they kind of get bored of it and they go off and do other things. Not to mention, a lot of games have been coming out this year.
I think another thing that World of Warships currently suffers from is sort of a lack of marketing and just general exposure to the population. I'm not sure, what Wargaming exactly intends to do about this, but for now, at least, it just doesn't seem like they're trying to, reach out to too many people. And as for the existing population, a lot of people, are only interested in certain types of ships. Maybe some people, show up just for the battleships. Some people are just interested in the cruisers or what have you. And I mean, although Wargaming, I feel like is, probably trying to pump out these ship lines, as quickly as they can. If you just look at the amount of detail in every single ship, these things take a while to produce, and especially to come up with a whole new line. So, in between these releases, I think it's pretty natural for some people to sort of lose interest, fade out a little bit.
Yeah, I think when we see the the German battleships come out in August, I hope that's a real hard date. I'm certainly looking forward to it. I'm sure we'll see a big spike again, and I think we'll see a big spike with, well, not a big spike, but a spike with this patch with the weather, which we'll talk about coming up, and a few of the other changes, but mostly that one. I think that one's a big deal. People will check in to see what that's like and how that changes gameplay. But
I mean, I think another way for Wargaming to really attract people is to really start, pushing the sort of competitive side of this game, right? I mean, yeah, we have team battles, but like we mentioned before, there's not just like no leaderboards, of any sort, whether for team or individuals. And I think the sooner they sort of, or feel comfortable with pushing the competitive side of this game and sort of get, more and more people to, play this game competitively and, sort of, put that out there, the sooner, Wargaming will see more people be like, hey, this is a game that you can play competitively, let's go check it out.
So I did some basic math and averaged a lot of stuff, and I'm sure it's not empirical, right? But I kind of came up with the Russian server average is kind of around 20, above 20,000. The EU average is around, above 20,000 in general. Asia does about 13, and then North America is somewhere between 9 and 11, kind of depending on the cycle, right? And so, I mean, that's not totally unhealthy considering where we are in the game. And if you look at, I looked at it over time, over the last 6 months, over the last year, and again, didn't see a huge amount of drop stuff that's like, oh man, I guess we're done, right? And move on to the next game. So I think that's a good sign. I think there's a lot of holdouts, and we'll just have to keep an eye on it and keep trying to find new ways or interesting ways to keep interested in it.
I mean, the NA server population, at least, has been, fairly steady. Generally speaking, if you log in around peak hours, you'll see maybe 10K players, on average. And, I had to say, I am actually somewhat surprised that we've been able to hold steady with, this number of players for so long. But, obviously I would like to see this number to continue to grow as time goes on, just because I think this game is pretty unique, pretty fun, and I think if, more people were aware that, this is a thing, we'd see, more people.
I was always curious why they didn't at least merge the EU and North America servers as far as like population. They don't have to obviously physically merge it, but put them in the same kind of matchmaker. I mean, they have some English speaking in Europe, and it would kind of increase the population of the game in that manner. Maybe it's because there's different release cycles and different like ships offered, and still kind of exploring what to market to whom. I'm not sure.
I would assume it's for the same reason in most other games separate NA and European players, and that's because latency.
Well, I've never tried to change over to the or the European server and see, how bad it really is. Because unless the latency, this isn't one of those first-person shooter games. It's not like Call of Duty or any of those other ones, right? This is, unless it resulted in something super choppy, you could probably be all right. There aren't those half a millisecond where that was gonna keep you from living or dying. I can count maybe on one hand.
You have to remember, just because this game isn't a Twitch shooter does not necessarily mean it's completely independent of latency. I mean, for especially playing like guns, ships with like a lot of guns, or whatever. I mean, even a second. Like imagine if the ship that you're aiming is actually like a second, behind of where he actually is to the server. I mean, that alone is already enough to throw off, your aim. You could very easily aim too far or too far back, just based off like 1 second's movement. Not to mention, if the ship decides to make a turn within that 1 second and you catch it 1 second too late, I mean that could be like a wasted salvo right there. For carriers, it's probably even more sensitive, especially if you're trying to perform like a really close-in torpedo drop. 1 second is a huge difference between that torp bomber squadron getting in there and dropping torps, or them, doing that weird little loop-de-loop because they're too close to the drop circle.
Oh, I was
also same for torpedoes. Imagine if you saw torpedoes, 1 second after they were supposed to technically appear because you're lagging. So yeah, I mean, you're right. This is not like a Twitch reaction shooter where
hold on,
split
dude.
seconds mean a lot.
Let's talk about two of those things you said there. Let's talk about two of those things you said there. One, when you said carriers and manual drops, I kind of stopped listening. And two, the torpedoes. At this point, unless they're spotted early on by another ship, and say you're in a battleship, right? What are you really gonna do about it?
Well, first of all, you'll have to recall that when the patch hits tomorrow, we're gonna get more detection range on those torpedoes.
Well, on a subset of those torpedoes.
True, but let's face it, it's probably the most cancerous subset, those torpedoes.
All right. Well, we'll see.
And,
we'll have to see how that works out. They're going to replace that with the better torpedo, so it'll be all right.
I mean,
right?
if you want to just, if you think it doesn't matter, then the next time you play, the next time, no matter what ship you're in, next time you see like a torpedo warning pop up, time yourself 1 second after the pop-up comes up that you start taking evasive action, and then you tell me how much of a difference that makes.
All right. I'll take you up on that. We'll see how that works out. But speaking of carriers, not that I like talking about carriers, but the defensive fire is showing up tomorrow, and I gotta say, if you look at the stats on it, on what do you make of what they're trying to do? So like, look at the Midway versus the Lexington and how much it multiplies the guns, right? And then how long it's active for. Do you think that's going to fix it?
Is it going to fix early game carrier sniping? Absolutely, I think. As a carrier, I mean, if depending on the length of the game, the number of strikes you get off is very limited, and you simply cannot afford to spend like 5 minutes flying around the edges of the map to find an enemy carrier only for him to pop defensive AA and completely ruin your strike. Like that's ridiculous.
I don't know. One of the comments I saw made, and I think is one of the blue notes in the news, right, is that hey, we think that when you lose a high tier carrier, that team's at a disadvantage, and it's not right. And yes, I understand that, but at the same time, all that does is push the burden onto everybody else. I personally like it when the carriers go after each other because they're leaving me alone.
Well, you're going to learn to deal with it because wargaming feels that, carriers are a special case that requires special action to preserve for some reason. I honestly think that losing a high-tier battleship right off the bat is almost as impactful as losing a carrier. But, some people obviously strongly disagree. I mean,
it's like not being able to sack the quarterback, right? I can't hit the quarterback, right? That's what you're saying.
Pretty much, yeah.
And if you don't want the quarterback to get hit, then maybe you should protect it.
Yeah, maybe you should find yourself some linemen. Maybe
you shouldn't early John Elway it outside the pocket and get creamed.
That's asking too much of Warships players, clearly.
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know. We'll have to see how it goes. But, I mean, at Tier 8, I know some people spec out the Lexington for AA, And honestly, that ship did not need defensive AA against a Shikaku. I don't know how you feel about that, but
Oh, well, I mean, in that particular case is more about Lexington on Lexington carrier sniping. Uh, but just in general, like with this change, like it not only affects early game carrier sniping, it just affects carrier like on carrier action in general because then you have this weird conundrum where okay, if I don't go after the enemy carrier right off the bat and I don't force him to pop the cooldown, he's just gonna have it up for the rest of the game. And most of the times, I think most people would agree, carriers are usually like the last ships alive. And so if you wait until that point before going after the carrier, they're still going to have it up, which means your last 3 minutes of the game, whatever, we're trying to kill this carrier, he's going to have that up, and it's going to be up to your surface ships to finish him off. And it's just, for me at least, it just screams of just, oh, we just don't want carriers killing other carriers, unless for some like weird, alignment of the stars gives you a team where they're not only good enough to handle enemy carrier strikes, the enemy team's surface warships, so well that it gives you time to go after the enemy carrier twice in a row, which in most cases will involve sending your planes all the way across the map to attack the guy. And it's just doesn't seem worth it to me. It just seems like they're just saying, nope. If you're a carrier, don't go after the carrier. Play nice, go after these other ships, but don't go after the carrier.
So do you think after a couple weeks or a month or two that we're going to see the pendulum swing back the other way and say, I need more AA on my turrets, or I need more AA on this battleship, or destroyers need more AA, or their defensive fire is now you get it without sacrificing the speed boost, right? I mean, are you still going to try and strike a carrier?
I probably won't. Like I mentioned before, it's way too time consuming to go fly all the way around the map trying to get the enemy carrier, only for him to just completely spoil or strike with the press of a button. But as for the flip case, I don't know. In this current patches AA scheming, if a group of ships sticks together, they generally have more than enough AA to deter like a carrier strike, or at very least prevent getting completely sniped out. As for destroyers and their AA, I mean, it's sort of it's hard to say because sometimes these destroyers who cry about being constantly spotted, like they're tens of kilometers removed from the nearest teammate because they're off on their own doing their own lone wolf thing and they get caught out. But for the destroyers who play closer to the main body of the fleet, it's very easy for them to shake off a plane. You just drive to the nearest cruiser or battleship and they'll just blow those planes out of the sky.
Yeah, so, I'm not gonna lie. I don't have any sympathy for a destroyer that gets torpedoed sitting still in its own smoke. None.
And I mean, just in general, you also have to remember, carrier snipes at the beginning of the game, like they are a thing, and like I'm not saying they'd never happen, but like they were still a relatively rare occurrence. For the most part, I generally see carriers just go after each other's fleets for the most part. But maybe around 20% of the time, you'll see a carrier try to snipe the other carrier, and it's especially prevalent in games where there are two carriers on each side. I feel like in the vast majority of those games, the carriers will attempt to strike on each other.
Yeah, when you get the double down,
I don't know.
Yeah, when you get the double down carrier, I could absolutely see that, and that I could see as a problem because you physically can't stop all of those planes. So I don't know. We'll see how it plays out. We'll talk about it some more, and I don't know. In the meantime, though, did you see that Texas screenshot that it got over 100k damage?
I have not seen that screenshot.
Man, at tier 4, you got to be working hard to get that. Unless you're in a Yumikaze at tier 2 or something like that, then of course you'll get 100k. But in the Texas, man, I remember those were some brutal times. Low tier getting outranged by cruisers, right?
I mean, I don't want to disparage the player who got it. I don't want to take away from that person's achievement, but a lot of stars had to have aligned for that screenshot to be produced. A lot of broadside enemies, a lot of just players not shooting this guy in this Texas. But props to that guy.
Yeah, I'll take it all day long. But that kind of goes hand in hand with a battleship accuracy thing. And I know you found the other day that Tier 8 U.S. battleships and up are going to get an accuracy buff, which means, I guess, less dispersion, right?
Correct. There was a Q&A on the Russian forums a few days ago, and one of the questions was a question regarding the high-tier U.S. battleships, and according to Wargaming, that they're going to tweak the accuracy on those ships, and that we should stay tuned.
Yeah,
So,
tweak sounds like a Care Bear huggy word, but I don't know. Hopefully, it's good enough that.
Well, I was just paraphrasing that answer. They quite literally just straight up said that they're going to buff the accuracy. So
yeah, I was being flippant. I mean, I don't think we're going to see a Moggy type dispersion from a North Carolina, right? But hey, anything that makes it better so you can bounce more shells off Yamato will be good, right?
Yep.
So I don't know. We could talk about some of the patch notes for tomorrow. I mean, the biggest one to me is we got some more details on the weather and what that's going to look like on North, and it actually looks way more interesting than when they first said they were going to do it and implement it. And that's that it's more dynamic than I originally thought it was going to be, where it can come and go in a battle and it has varying durations in a battle, which is going to be awesome, I think.
Well, from what I've read, you just said that for most of the weather effects, it's going to occur at the beginning of the match and eventually fade away, right?
Well, that's for the other ones other than North, right? North, the cyclone weather condition's gonna be the one that affects your visibility down to 8K, and that can last from 2 to 10 minutes, so the notes say, and affect some of the ways you can spot people. And that can come and go. On the other ones, it's not going to affect visibility. It's just going to start out that way and then dissipate after 90 seconds. So it's kind of a nice visual effect, but in the end, it's not going to have any impact on the game.
I also kind of wish they would not fade out the weather effect. I wish they would maintain the intensity of the weather throughout the entire match.
Well, we'll have to see how it goes as far as spotting, even though you got a giant red, lettering over it. But I really want to get into North, man. It's going to be awesome.
I also wonder if they'll implement like a smaller scale weather, so to speak, so that you can say have like a fog bank roll over like one of the cap points on the map, and that and then for the duration of that fog bank, that cap is under like special weather circumstances, whereas the rest of the map may be unaffected. I think that would be interesting.
Oh, I think there's more to come from this. I think this is the first rollout, and they'll kind of see what the feedback is. And I hope everyone out there thinks it's awesome, because while maybe it doesn't last 8 kilometers spotting range for the whole match, it'll definitely make it more dynamic. And I think it's going to be exciting. I can't wait to try it out tomorrow.
Yeah, this is definitely something to look forward to, and I really hope that it's well received and that Wargaming is encouraged to expand upon it.
I mean, there's a bunch of other notes, right? We're gonna get 2 new maps. That should be interesting. I like that they picked up some of the mods for the crosshairs. I use the stock crosshair for better or worse, but maybe I'll check this out now that they're in game and you can kind of play with them. There's some varying other visual and sound effects and some of the models, but none of those too earth-shattering. Of course, there's some more notes on the torpedoes, which we kind of covered before. No big surprises or changes or additional information there.
Yep.
We talked about the defensive fire on the carriers, right? I still don't know how I feel about that. But, I mean, the big news, Pensacola gets 1 extra millimeter of armor. I mean, that's earth-shattering. I think maybe now the Udaloy won't pin it. I don't know. Or a Kiev. Sorry, Udaloy. I mean, how often do you see that? Oh, you do see that more often than you would like to, right? A Pensacola against a Udaloy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Several times. So it's not out of the realm of possibility.
Pensacola is one of those ships where if you see it, no matter what ship you're in, you just load AP. Just you don't question it. It's just I'm shooting in a Pensacola. If you're shooting you a pretty good angle, load AP, and that's it.
Yeah, I mean my ship just does it for me. I don't have to think about it. There's a bunch of I guess the big question for you is tomorrow to uninstall and reinstall or to update the file system. What's your call?
I mean, for those of you who aren't aware, with the next patch, they are changing the way some of the game files are being handled. And as a result of that, after you download the patch, the game's got to go through and clean up and consolidate all the various files that got changed. For people with slightly slower computers, this could take a while. And so one of the things that Wargaming has, advised is if your internet connection is fast enough, it may be faster for you to uninstall a game and re-download it and reinstall it, all using the new file format. That way, it doesn't have to go through and, do all that cleanup. As for myself, I think I'm going to try the clean install. Some people have said that when you do that, the game will clear out all of its temporary downloads and stuff like that, and it just cuts down on its size. That, and for me at least, the game has been crashing quite a bit recently, and maybe a clean install will hopefully fix that.
Yeah, maybe they will. I haven't decided yet. I think maybe if I can convince some family members to do it for me while I'm at work, that's how I'll try it first. I'll probably just let it try and update. And really, there's only two other things that I didn't see in previous notes that came out that to me are particularly interesting, which is in team battles, the minimum amount of players required to enter a battle is now down to 2. So where before it was, 4, right? So I guess you and me could form a team, pick anybody up we wanted, and we're good to hook. Not that we've actually played team battles in a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, this change, I'm not quite sure what to make of it. I myself, it's not, for me. It's never been an issue of we don't have enough people on. It's always just been, just in general, not enough, interest in playing tier 6s over and over again.
Yeah, I'd be curious to know how many teams are actually active right now, still doing team battles. The other one though that is just a quality of life change that I think is awesome, I really do, is that the additional ship parameters displayed while you're in port, it's going to show you the shell velocity of your main batteries. It's going to show you the shell velocity for your secondary. It's going to show you the detectability of your range of the torpedoes. I mean, that's super interesting information, as well as some kind of torpedo belt stuff. And I'm not sure how much I really care about it, but the aircraft rear gunners damage, it's going to show you their AA rating, I guess. But maybe you'll care about that one. Maybe after that you can decide whether or not you want to take that talent that increases the rear gunner damage or not with your captain.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty much all for giving players as much information as possible, and so I feel like this is definitely a step in the right direction. Although some of the stuff that they're going to show us does seem a tad trivial, but I welcome this. This is more information that we know about, and I just hope that this also means that the whole import armor viewer that they talked about is also going to be coming up soon.
There was one other change that I'm trying to find, actually. Trying to look it up in real time. It's like trying to do math in public, right? Don't do it. That's all right. I'll find it. We'll talk about it again maybe next week or something once I can find it. But it was another one interesting tidbit. But all in all, I think it's going to be awesome. Aside from the aircraft defensive or the CV defensive fire, I think the jury's still out on that one. And next week and the week after should be super interesting. We're trying to get Aslan to come on if we can convince him to talk to us. Maybe we'll link that up kind of with one of the European streamers and kind of talk about mods and what the European community's got going on right now, at least in the English side of Warships Europe. And other than that, man, I think that's a wrap.
Yeah.
One other thing, I'd like to see you start a new account with no premium and level up one tree and let me know if you make it to tier 10 in anything but a painful fashion. Test the free-to-play model.
I don't think I got time for that.
All right. Well, with that, we'll call it a show.